LSD progression, what do I do? For the most part, break it down into 3 segments, plus a little bit at the end. LSDs with hills, LSDs with speed and hills, even if I'm doing flat running, okay? A lot of trainers do this, a lot of athletes do it, but for the most part, a lot of people, they don't even get out of this LSD range, and they don't even get enough mileage in there, because they're not consistent in their training, and they're not ticking over and keeping themselves maintained at a good base level through their quieter months. So let's have a look at number 1, okay? Working at 65 to 75% to maximise the efficiencies that you're trying to gain from within that range of like mitochondrial build-up, efficiencies in your ligaments and tendons and muscle fibres, etc., that work in line with your other systems such as your endocrine and lymphatic system to get rid of like the chemicals and the deposits that are built up from doing that type of work. And I build my mileage up, and I'm building it up to about 75% of my goal LSD mileage. So if I'm doing a half marathon and I want to build to 20 miles LSDs before I do that race, I get to about 14, 15, 16 miles-ish, so that I'm comfortable on my legs for pretty much 75% of the distance that I want to capture in my LSDs. Then I start adding category 2, the hills. And that is really dependent on what my goal is. If I'm doing a really hilly race with weight, I want to start adding a little bit of hills, maybe a little bit earlier on, maybe 60% of the way through my LSD training. I want to start adding hills. And it's not that it's aggressive, but I might add 120 metres the first one, then maybe about 165, then about 210, then about 260. So I'm adding about 45 to 65 metres of elevation, and I'm managing that, and I'm keeping an eye on whether it's affecting my distance. Because you don't want to add so much elevation that affects your duration that you're on your legs, okay? So if you're starting to add hills from 16 miles and then you are starting to decline at 13 or 14 miles in your next run because you start to add the hills too much, then that's counterproductive. So you only add an elevation at such a level that your body can suck it up more and more each week because it's becoming more efficient and more like capturing the economy that's coming from that elevation. And then into the latter stages of training, dependent again on what the race is, I start adding some speed. And what I mean by speed is like half marathon pace, 10k pace, and maybe some 5k pace efforts in there, 30 seconds up to maybe 2 or 3 minutes, okay? After about 50% of the way through the actual training session itself. What you'll find is it makes your run actually a lot easier because kind of ticking over at the same cadence, at the same level of intensity because of the non-hills that were in your flat LSD or whatever, that's a hard run for 16, 18, 20, 22 miles, whatever you're doing. But as soon as you add a little bit of load in there, in whatever form that takes, whether it's speed work or hills, you'll find it a lot easier because you're telling your body, look, this is what I can do. It's lengthening the muscles because of the extra load you put in there, and you're less likely to tighten up, and you'll find that your LSD mileage comes a lot better and easier. And the last part is specificity of training. So in the last 3 or 4 weeks, maybe, if I've got that amount of time, then I'm starting to kind of take that and be a little bit more specific in the needs of my goal. As in, if I'm doing like a slightly hilly 13.1 mile half marathon and I've got my LSDs up with a few hills in there and some speed work up to 20 miles, I might even start reducing that a little bit and being a bit more specific and coming out of the LSD range and more in the efficiency range, just to capture a little bit more intensity, more specific to the needs of my actual event that I'm going to be doing. Thanks for listening.